Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast. My name is Chris,
And my name is James.
and we are the Formula One Bros.
Just two twins with a love of F1 to share everything in the world of Formula One.
And this week, we're going to be going over a lot of news stories in the world of Formula One as the F1 teams prepare for the second of two tests in Bahrain this week.
Yeah, so a lot of F1 news has been happening, obviously, over the past week or so. Mainly with the situation that is happening between in Russia and Ukraine. Now, how does this affect Formula One? So, obviously, it was announced yesterday, as of March 5th, 2022. Nikita Mazepin will no longer be a Formula One driver for the Haas F1 team. Well, no longer be a Formula One driver, period. We talked a little bit about this last week in the situation with Haas, and we were kind of speculating, what is this going to happen? How is this going to happen? What's going to happen? Well, now we have the answer. So last week we started talking about, with the invasion of Ukraine happening, within 24 hours of us making that episode, couple days of us making that episode, there was still a lot that was unclear. So let's before I talk about the good decision that Haas made of dropping Nikita Mazepin, let's talk about all the things that have happened up until then. So we woke up February 28th, I believe, and Russia had invaded Ukraine. At the time, no one, when that immediately happened, no one was really thinking, oh, how does this affect Formula One? Until everyone was like, wait a second, they're in the middle of F1 testing. Obviously, we saw Haas removed all Uralkali branding the last day of testing. They ran just a plain white livery. But up until then, when we made our last episode, that was really the only thing that had happened. So after that, there was an emergency meeting with the FIA, and they decided to not race in Russia this year, which was definitely a good decision. And there were a lot of F1 drivers who had said, well, if we do race in Russia, we're just not going to go. So I think there's definitely a lot of pressure there on the FIA and on Formula One to just not race in Russia anymore, which is definitely the right decision. And with that, though, what was interesting is because the FIA terminated all contracts with Russia. That includes racetrack, promoters, everything with Russia. And they had already started planning a street course around the streets of St. Petersburg, Russia.
I actually believe it was going to be a permanent road course.
Oh, okay. So so permanent road course. They had planned on building a racetrack in St. Petersburg, Russia, for a second Russian Formula One race. It wasn't going to replace Sochi. It was just going to be added on, kind of like how Miami is being added on to the U.S. Formula One race. So it's kind of like.
I actually think that it was set to replace Sochi because we've been racing at Sochi since 2014, and they wanted to move to a different, more permanent facility that was a little bit more natural and flowing with the land and not, through Olympic Village and everything.
Oh, yeah. Cool. So anyway, they terminated all contracts with Russia, which was definitely the right move. But then the FIA made the announcement that Russian and Belarusian drivers could still compete just under a neutral flag, which was very weird to me because at least Russia already, Russian drivers, were already racing under neutral flags anyway. Like Nikita Mazepin had already just been racing under a neutral flag anyway. So that was kind of like, really? After taking such a strong stance of not racing on Russia, then you do that, and it's like, really, what's the point? But anyway, so then the UK banned all athletes from competing in the UK, which also included Formula One, which means Nikita Mazepin was not going to be able to race in UK if he was going to be able to race anyway and get a visa to be able to travel to all these countries, because a lot of these countries weren't allowing Russian people into the countries anyway. So it would have been very difficult to get a visa anyway. But let's say he still wouldn't be able to race in Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. And so then the next step was we got the announcement yesterday, March 5th, that Nikita Mazepin's contract had been terminated, along with Haas and Uralkali parting ways, which is definitely the right move for Haas. Definitely the right move for Haas.
Yeah. So a couple important things to keep in mind as we're going through this is we've said it over the past couple episodes that Nikita Mazepin's spot on that team was tied to Uralkali, the sponsor, which is his father's company. And because it's a Russian energy company, Dmitry Mazepin Sr., was very closely connected to the Kremlin and Putin's Kremlin. So there was a lot of conflicting interests there. And so it was initially, I think that it was not an inherent, we need to drop Mazepin. It was, we need to part ways with Uralkali. And because of that, we have no reason to retain Mazepin. And they dropped Uralkali because, one, it's an American company, so there's an association there.
It's a Russian company.
Yeah, well, Haas is an American team.
Oh, okay.
Gene Haas runs an American company, so it's all the association there with working with the Russian title sponsor, but also the all of the Russian banks are frozen, so there was no way that Uralkali was going to be able to help fund the team. So it was just kind of like, we have no reason to keep them on board. We can't get money from them. There's this huge conflict of interest when it comes to association. So it was the right decision to part ways with Uralkali. And that meant parting ways with Nikita Mazepin, which, as you mentioned before, I think for Haas is 100% the right decision.
Absolutely.
I think this whole Russia situation, obviously Nikita Mazepin is not, involved in the government in any way, but I think with his track record and everything that has happened with him in Formula One and before he got to Formula One, I was very skeptical that he was allowed to retain his seat coming into his rookie year, and it's unfortunate, but I am thankful that he is parting ways with Formula One. That's the right decision. And I think moving forward, and we'll talk about this, next, but I think who Haas chooses to replace him is going to be very important for how they are perceived in taking their future, like how serious they are perceived in taking their future.
Yeah, it is going to be it absolutely is going to be very important. I mean, there are a lot of really talented drivers who have a lot of experience in F1 who I'm sure would love to come back into Formula One. For example, Nico Hulkenberg is one. He's like working with Aston Martin right now. Antonio Giovinazzi, who is racing in Formula E. There are a ton of Formula One drivers who I'm sure would love to come back into the sport.
Yeah.
But there are some rookies that came from F2 last year that also I think could be good in that sport, in that seat. For example, Oscar Piastri. I know everyone was kind of like, why didn't Oscar Piastri get a seat in Formula One? That was very hotly debated on, whether it should have been Guan Yu Zhou or Oscar Piastri, all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'll pose this question: Who would you like to see in that seat? Who would you like to see?
As much as I am a huge Oscar Piastri fan, and he 100% deserves to be in Formula One, and I have a feeling he will be in Formula One in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Haas needs to find somebody with experience. And this is not a slight at Oscar Piastri at all, because I think he could add a lot to the team, but
Mm-hmm.
they took on 2 rookies 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and it kind of showed the level of inexperience that they had. And, obviously I rate Mick very highly, but a rookie is a rookie.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to see somebody like Nico Hulkenberg or Antonio Giovinazzi. Um, of the two, I think Nico Hulkenberg could probably be a little bit more consistent.
Yeah.
But if you're in terms of recency, you need somebody like Giovinazzi in that seat. He
Yeah.
is Ferrari Driver Academy contracted. Haas runs a Ferrari engine. So I think that is
Yeah. There's.
probably more likely. The other thing that you have to, I mean, it'll probably be harder to pull away Giovinazzi from Formula E, but it'll be just as hard to pull Piastri and um, Hulkenberg away from their contracts with their other teams. Another
Yeah.
person that I think it's worth mentioning is their reserve driver, Pietro Fittipaldi, son
Yeah.
of Formula One world champion Emerson Fittipaldi.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to bring that up because he is their reserve driver,
Mm-hmm.
but he just doesn't have the CV yet, I think,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to to be in a full-time Formula One seat with Mick as his teammate. If he had
Yeah.
somebody like Roman Grosjean or Kevin Magnussen as his teammate, I would say go for it, because they have,
Yeah.
especially Roman Grosjean, tons of F1 experience.
Oh yeah.
I would be totally cool with putting somebody like that in the car. I mean, and he did race against K Mag when um against it in those 2 races against when Grosjean had his crash, but he had somebody with experience like Kevin to rely on. So
Yeah.
I would just like to see somebody with a little bit more F1 experience. So I would pick either Giovinazzi or Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Um, I think those would be my
Yeah. I
picks.
mean, personally, just so I can say it, but I would love to see Nico Hulkenberg so we can have Hulken back
Finally,
again. I it's Nico Hulkenberg is one of the most like unanimously loved people in the F1 community. And it sucks because he's been racing in Formula One since 20 or had been racing up until he um left Renault in 2019. He'd been racing in F1 consistently since 2012. 2012 was his first year. Or is it 2011?
it's 2009
Oh, it was 2009.
with
Okay.
Williams.
Williams, that's right. So Nico Hulkenberg has a lot of F1 experience, and it sucks because he was never put into a team. He's so talented, but he was never put into a team that I felt like was a fair representation of his abilities, which is unfortunate. But I would love to see Nico Hulkenberg back. So I would love to see him in that seat. Ultimately, though, I think what Haas is going to do, I think they're going to pick Fittipaldi just because he's already their development driver. He's already with the team. That there's less contract discussion, like terminating Nico Hulkenberg's contract with, or suspending it with Aston Martin, or getting Antonio Giovinazzi over from Formula E. There's like a lot less logistical issues. So I think they're going to go with Fittipaldi, but I would love to see, in my personal opinion, I'd love to see Nico Hulkenberg in
Yeah,
that seat.
yeah. A couple last things on this. I will just say, there have been a lot of rumors swirling around that Fittipaldi has already been named as the driver.
Mm-hmm.
But a part of Haas's statement when saying like we're parting ways with Nikita Mazepin, it also came out that Gunter Steiner in an interview said that they had not picked a driver, they had not even discussed
Yeah.
it, and that will be it's Sunday as we're recording this episode, so it should be in the coming week. but they have not made a decision, and I think that's important, because I think a lot of the statements coming out are rumors and speculation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we have to wait and see. The other thing is, it's so unfortunate. I talked about it last time, but it is really unfortunate that Haas is in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But they're only in this situation because Gene Haas, the owner, is not putting in more money to that team. He has the ability, crosses the Haas Automotive Company, the revenue that he makes from his NASCAR team, everything. He has enough money that he could completely fund the team at the budget cap, which is $140 million, as like chump change. Like, he's like up there with like Lawrence Stroll level rich.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why Haas in 2019 went with the Rich Energy deal that famously went sour, is because he refused to put in more funding in the team. Now, fortunately, Ural Kali was only 1/5 of the team's revenue in intake, but it's still like they had to go with Nikita. They were kind of forced into a situation where they needed Ural Kali, they needed Nikita Mazepin to help fund the team. Now, Gunter Steiner has said that they don't need Ural Kali to survive financially. And so that leads me to believe that, they're getting enough funding from other places, or Gene Haas might be kicking in some more funding.
Let's
But
hope so.
it's been like the past couple of years, they've been, Haas has just been dancing with their hands tied. So I'm hoping that they can, I'm hoping that, they can do something. And I think too, if they pick their driver right, that could also bring in some more funding, like Giovinazzi or Hulkenberg. They can kind of bring in some sponsors onto that team as well to kind of fill that gap. And I think that's another thing that they need to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does suck that this is happening, but they don't really have anyone else to blame other than themselves for putting themselves in this situation. So the next thing on our docket, to talk about something a little bit lighter, the W Series. Have they just wrapped up testing, or are
Yep,
they still in the middle of testing?
they wrapped up testing on Friday.
So the W Series has been doing some um, testing. Chris, would you like to talk about the W Series doing their testing?
So the last time we chatted about W Series, we talked about it in our first episode when we were kind of going over all of the feeder series, and we were talking about how it's a part of the feeder series, and it is still in its infancy. This is only its third season, and it was kind of created to give women a direct pathway into um into Formula One, or into the upper feeder series like Formula 2 or Formula 3, Formula 2, like on the road to F1.
Mm-hmm. Oh, which is just so awesome to see.
Yeah. So it started out in its first year, it just started out as a testing ground for women drivers. And then in its second year, they, which was 2021, they took a season off in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, its second year, it officially became a feeder series for Formula One. So they now race in the Formula One Grand Prix weekends. And they are now, it was announced last year and they did a trial run, but it will officially this year be a team championship format like Formula 3 and like Formula 2. So essentially so before, it was just, everybody was just kind of driving in the neutral W Series branded cars, which were purple and yellow. And then in 2021, they started kind of racing on teams, but they weren't doing a team championship format. So they weren't taking the driver's points in the team, adding them up to create the team championship points total from the weekend and doing a team championship that way. But now this is the first year that they're actually doing a team championship thing. So they have a lot of sponsors coming on, a lot of interest. in the team. So they're starting to kind of formulate all of the teams. So, which is really cool. And they're starting to make some driver announcements like Jamie Chadwick, Fabian Volvend, and a couple others who have announced on teams. So the way that testing, because it's in its infancy right now, and they're still using it as a trial run for, and as like a laboratory for female drivers, and they're really trying to create a pipeline for women in the karting scene into single seaters. So they took the top 8 finishing drivers from the previous year's championship, plus the highest finishing W Series Academy driver. So those 9 drivers are automatically qualified for this upcoming season. They automatically qualify. And then they bring in a bunch of other drivers, potential rookies, and potentially drivers from previous seasons who didn't finish in the top 8 to come along into testing. And from testing, they set the field. And they have not set the field yet. The driver announcement will be coming soon, but the drivers returning for the test were Jamie Chadwick, Belen Garcia, Marta Garcia, Jessica Hawkins, Emma Kimmelainen, Nara Marti, Sarah Moore, Alice Powell, Abby Pooling, and Irina Sidorkova, Bruno Tomaselli, Beitske Visser, and Fabian Volvend. So the top 8 of the finishing championship, plus a bunch of other drivers from the previous seasons, and then they brought in a bunch of rookies as well. Notably missing from that pool of drivers who were supposed to make their testing was Abby Eaton from the UK. She, in one of the final races in last season, her car stalled on the grid and was in an accident and actually broke her back. So
yeah, I remember that.
She's still in recovery. They're still talking contracts and everything. I believe she finished in the top 8 in the season, so she should be automatically qualified for the season, but has not done any of the testing or anything because she's still recovering back in the UK. Amongst the new rookies in the field, it's I think the new rookie that I'm most excited about is Juju Noda from Japan. She I think is like 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, she's really young.
But she and I'm not familiar with her single seater career, but she is proven herself to be incredibly fast through karting, through Super Formula, through Asian F4, like all of these championships that she was run, she has like dominated, and she is
the female Max
fast.
Verstappen.
Literally, like she's so quick, she's so fast, and I'm really, she's 16 this year. I think she was 14 when she won the Super Formula championship. So she's absolutely insane. She's young. She's super quick. I'm excited for that. I'm excited. A lot of others. We have an American representative in the grid, Chloe Chambers. So
cool.
she's in a bid to get in there. She will be going in place of Sabra Cook, who is the other American in the grid, but was not present at testing this year. So lots of really cool things. The driver lineup will be coming up probably in a couple days in the coming weeks, because they've just finished testing. They had a car shakedown in Arizona a couple weeks ago, and then they had the official W Series test. So lots of really cool things I'm really excited about. And so next thing that I want to talk about is actually their schedule coming up. They are set to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right now, 7, potentially 8 Grand Prix weekends. So they're opening the season in Miami for the US for the Miami Grand Prix. Then they're going to Barcelona, Silverstone, Le Castellet in France, going to be competing at Paul Ricard. Hungary. They're going to Suzuka in Japan.
Cool.
And then Mexico City is where they're finishing the season. Before Mexico, they're supposed to go to the Austin race, but that is pending a contract. So right now it's 7, potentially 8 races in the championship, which I'm super excited about. Jamie Chadwick coming back to hopefully defend for her 3rd champion.
That would be cool.
Yeah, so she won first 2 seasons. Jamie Chadwick won the championship in both. I'm narrowly beating out Alice Powell and Emma Kimalainen. So I'm very excited about that. The championship is great. And also just, it is so cool that this is a thing, because not only is it giving a path to Formula One for some of the most talented. I'm not even going to make the distinction of some of the most talented women drivers, some of the most talented drivers. Like, Jamie Chadwick is a development driver for Williams. Jessica Hawkins is a brand ambassador for Aston Martin. So there are super quick drivers a part of this, and they deserve a path up into Formula One to compete with all of the drivers up in the Formula 3 and Formula 2 categories. And I'm so glad that they have this. But last year in 2021, Sarah Moore stood on the podium in Great Britain, which is the first openly LGBT person to stand on a podium during a Formula One Grand Prix weekend, which is huge. So it is so great. And I keep up with the W Series a lot, because it's not obviously from an advocacy standpoint, but it's proper entertaining racing. They race hard, and
they're really good.
They race hard. They're incredibly talented drivers, and I'm super excited for another really entertaining season. It came down to the last race of the season. They did a doubleheader in the United States. And it literally came down to the last race for the championship, and Jamie Chadwick was able to pull it out. So very excited. They're expanding their championship. They're going to Asia. So it's not just Europe and North America. They're going to Asia with the race in Suzuka. Yeah, I'm super excited. It's a great series.
So I'm also very, very excited. And hopefully they can get that contract for Austin to work out, because we're going to that race, and that'll be cool to be able to see a W Series race live in person when we're there, which would be awesome. And one thing, so backtracking a little bit, one thing I was going to ask, but part of the Haas Russia drama. So obviously we're no longer racing in Russia. There now is like this big rumor mill speculation cycle thing going around on social media as to what track they are going to replace. Most interestingly, the Twitter account for the Sepang International Racetrack in Malaysia just tweeted, after that was announced. So what would be, if you had to pick like 2 or 3 tracks, or maybe just 2, what 2 tracks would you like to see replace Russia?
Sepang and Sepang. That's it. I would love to see the Malaysian Grand Prix come back. It is such a classic track. It has created some absolute barnstormers of races, especially when you consider, like, when they traditionally used to go to that race, it was in the middle of the monsoon season. So the weather can change. It was always unpredictable. It created some fantastic racing, lots of drama, citing the Multi-21 controversy between the Red Bull drivers. It just creates some amazing races. And I would love to see that track again. It was one of my favorite tracks to watch. It was one of my favorite tracks to race on in the F1 video games. It deserves to come back. I really want that. If I have to pick something other than Sepang, I would like to see one of the German tracks, Hockenheim or Nürburgring, come back.
Yep.
I don't think the Nürburgring will come back anytime soon because that was just kind of a one-off pandemic thing. But I would love for Hockenheim to come back. It provides great racing. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely on the Sepang train. I'd love to see that track, the Malaysia track, come back. Oh my gosh, if they could get that worked out and they're racing in Malaysia, oh my God, I'd be the happiest person on planet Earth, because that track is so, not only is like, does it create great racing, it's just a cool track. It's really cool. The scenery around the track is really pretty with like it's very tropical. Oh gosh, it's such a cool racetrack.
It's one of the only Herman Tilke tracks that I actually like.
Yeah, that's actually good. Yeah.
It has just a classic road course feel, you know?
Yeah. And I definitely also agree. I'd love to see it. It honestly blows my mind that there isn't a German Formula One race. It blows my mind that there isn't one. Especially considering in 2019 how good that German race was in Hockenheim.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it blows my mind that they didn't want to continue on at that track, because it was that track was also produced great racing, and oh my gosh, it was just such a bummer to see. So those are the two tracks I would like to see. I know at least in 2020, 2021, it wasn't the best, but the racing wasn't the best. But I'd like to see Turkey back on the grid too, or on the calendar, because Turkey was that Istanbul Park, also another classic Formula One track. They've been racing there since 2006 up until 2011. I can't
Couldn't tell
remember.
you.
But I mean, a lot of tracks I would like to see. So moving on, the last.
Sorry, I just one thing about the last German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. That race was so cool. I remember I was packing up my apartment that day because I was moving, and it was one of those things where I'd watch the race, I'd go like pack a box, and I'd come back and I'd be like, "What just happened? I missed something." It was like every single like every 5 minutes there was some new like, "Ooh, this person's gonna win a race. Ooh, this person's gonna win a race. Oh my God, Lewis Hamilton crashed out. Oh my God, Charles Leclerc was leading the race and crashed out." And it was, oh my God, it was so amazing. Oh, it was good. Anyway, moving on.
All right. So the last thing that we're going to talk about today, obviously the biggest news coming out of the last couple of days, Max Verstappen signed a huge $50 million contract until 2028. First, my first impression on that, obviously the right move. I'm not surprised. Like when that was announced, I was like, oh, good. Okay. But obviously well deserved. Max, I won a championship last year. Every year he's been getting better. Obviously it's the right move, in my opinion.
Yeah. Just to put it in perspective, we will be 32 when Max Verstappen's contract is up. We'll be 32. Yeah. Wow. Just insane. Yeah. And it now puts him on level, at least in terms of just straight up salary, not including any other like promotion, royalties, or anything that Lewis gets. Just on base salary, I'm pretty sure that puts Max Verstappen level at 50 million a year to Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Which obviously, you know, is warranted because they are the great intergenerational rivalry of the past couple years. It's been one that has been talked about since, gosh, probably 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And something that I'm really glad that we actually got to see play out properly in 2021. So yeah, it's just an absolutely mega contract. And the other thing that you need to think about is this is Max Verstappen signing on beyond the new engine regulation thing. So this is Max Verstappen not only saying, obviously, like he was very emotional after the race and was like, he won the championship, I want to stay with Red Bull forever, which I think is a good move for him. You know, he's popular. The team loves him. He's properly quick. He gives really good feedback. You know, he is the benchmark for that driver program. So it's good, but that's also Max Verstappen saying, with in 2026, with Red Bull powertrains being their own company and providing their own engines, or any talks surrounding a potential engine partnership with the VW group, like that's Max Verstappen also saying, I like where I see this going and I believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is a strong endorsement of where he sees Red Bull going for the new engine regulations too. I don't think Max Verstappen would have made that contract if he didn't believe in what Red Bull was doing with Red Bull powertrains for the new regulations coming up in 26.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of goes alongside with the contract, but that my biggest question obviously it's the right move. They're investing a lot of money into Max. They're investing a lot of time into Max, which is 1000% deserved. He's one of the best drivers on the grid, if not the best driver on the grid, with him and Lewis Hamilton. My biggest question is, who are they going to get to fill that second seat? Because it's great winning a driver world champion, but I'm sure Red Bull wants to win a constructor's title too. And the last time they won a constructor title, their lineup was 4-time champ Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, who was one of the best drivers. I think had Sebastian not been on the grid, Mark Webber would be the champion.
Yeah.
And they just, since Daniel left at the end of 2018, that second seat has just been a revolving door of drivers. Like in 2019, they started off with Pierre Gasly and then went to Alex Albon. 2020, they had Alex Albon, but then dropped him at the end of 2020. 2021, obviously Sergio Perez, and he did great. And he's on for this upcoming year too. But I have a feeling if Checo doesn't make an improvement to where it's like a Lewis and Valtteri situation, they know one of them is going to win each weekend or one of them is going to get on the podium each weekend. I don't think they're going to keep Checo, and they're kind of at a loss. And so I think the biggest question mark with Red Bull right now is who's going to be their long-term driver in that other seat. Because if they want to win a constructor's title and go back to their 2010 to 2013 glory days, they have to have someone in that seat that can compete on the level or just below Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there about Checo, and I think his racecraft is fine, but he needs to improve his qualifying because he was left with way too much work to do in every single race. And I think obviously he won in Baku, but that was also under some special circumstances. And he has shown that he can be there when he's quick, but too often by the time he gets up to the top 4, top 3, he's a pit stop cycle behind because he had so much traffic that he needed to clear in the opening laps because of his qualifying. So I completely agree with you there. And I think if he doesn't improve his qualifying, I think then Red Bull needs to start looking elsewhere. And I know Red Bull have still contracted Alex Albon. I know they're going to be watching him at Williams. They would be, after the couple seasons that Pierre Gasly has had, I think they would be foolish not to at least look at Pierre Gasly again, because I think Pierre Gasly, he was quick in Toro Rosso and he was fast tracked to that team when Daniel left. And I just don't think he had the experience that he needed. But now I think he does. He has proven that he is everything that Red Bull needs him to be. And I think if Red Bull do not seriously consider Pierre Gasly, then they don't at least consider Pierre Gasly, then they don't deserve a Constructors' Championship.
Yeah. I'm a little bit torn on Pierre because obviously I think now, after the experience that he's had, finish being dropped back to AlphaTauri or Toro Rosso, and then the 2 seasons at AlphaTauri that I had where he definitely outraced that car every single weekend. I think now he definitely should be in the talks to be in that seat, but I'd also love to see him out of that Red Bull umbrella.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit torn with Pierre.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And I think the way that, in my opinion, the way that goes, which way that sways, because I'm also torn with that too. I think the way that goes is dependent upon how seriously Red Bull take him. And if they, after everything that he's done for that team, they don't consider him, then he's gotta do something else. He's got to find another seat. I know he's previously been linked to the Mercedes seat. If Lewis Hamilton retires, I think that would be a great place for him. But speaking of Pierre, the reason why they dropped him is when he was in that Red Bull seat, he was too concerned about data, too concerned about like what's on paper and not really driving that car with his instincts. He was trying to set up the car differently for individual corners and different sectors without failing to kind of get a global scope of the entire lap and understanding that you have to compromise your setup in certain parts of certain tracks if you want to be the fastest. And I think that where that showed was his lack of qualifying pace and, his inability to maintain like really good tire conservation during a race in his race pace. So I think now, I think he's unlocked something at AlphaTauri. And I think that is a much better global picture of a weekend and how to set up a car over one lap. Obviously, because of the way that he qualifies, he wouldn't have that ability to set up a car for a good, solid, consistent one lap. If he would not be able to do that if he was not qualifying that way, and the reason why he's qualifying that way, I believe, is because of this. And especially in an AlphaTauri. So there's that. And I think the confidence that he has gotten from everything that he's done at AlphaTauri, the podiums he's gotten, the win in Monza in 2020, the confidence that he's gotten, I think will also help him to have a much easier time embedding into the Red Bull team.
Yeah.
Should he be given a contract?
Yeah. And also too, he's been now at that team, the lead driver at that team for 2 years now. So he has that experience being driver number one at a team for several years now.
Well, this is his third year.
This will be his third year there. Yeah, he's completed 2. This will be his third year. So yeah, I think it would be cool to have him back in that seat if he were to. Hopefully, he can level up to Max.
This will be his third year after already completing a year in 2018.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this will be on total year 4 in a row since Red Bull year 3.
Yeah.
And I think if Red Bull don't seriously consider him, if they decide to drop Checo, then he's got to look somewhere else. He's got to terminate his contract with Red Bull and with the Red Bull Driver Academy, or find a way to still be a Red Bull contracted driver and drive for another team, which if he's going to drive for a top team like Mercedes or something like that, Red Bull 0% will allow him to maintain his contract. And the only reason why Alex Albon is remaining his Red Bull contract while driving for Williams is because they know that Williams is not going to be anywhere close to Red Bull this year.
Yeah.
So, if they don't seriously consider him, he's got to get out.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, that contract for Max Verstappen is 100% the right move. It's it's good. It's good security for Red Bull. It's good security for Max. It's good security for the fans that will have someone like Max on the grid for a while. Mm-hmm. It's just all around a great decision.
And I saw this insane stat is, he already has like X number of seasons under his belt. He already has X number of podiums, X number of wins. He has a world championship. And by the time that this contract is up, he's only going to be 31.
Yeah.
So he will be at Sebastian Vettel's age when Sebastian Vettel left Ferrari, or he will be younger. He will still be younger than Sebastian Vettel was when Vettel was at Ferrari after all of the time that he competed in Red Bull. So he will far eclipse the number of Grand Prix starts than Fernando Alonso and Kimi Räikkönen have right now.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely insane.
And the number of starts that Lewis Hamilton has for the same team, which is also a record that Lewis Hamilton has.
Yeah.
So it is just mind-boggling to think about how much time Max Verstappen will be in Formula One and be only 31 by the time this contract is up.
Yeah, which is absolutely deserved. I mean, for being as talented as he is, as young as he is, and with this contract, I think he could win one, maybe two, potentially even three more championships. Who knows? I think that could happen. I think it could happen. It's a good move on Red Bull's part.
Yep, agree.
Yeah. So that wraps up our episode 5.
I think this is 6.
Maybe it is 6. Oh, yes, it is 6. Episode 6. Wow, 6 episodes already. Can you believe that?
Nope.
6 episodes. So, as always, be sure, like and subscribe. We are now on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter now. Go follow us at Twitter. All of their socials have this at Formula One _ bros. Be sure to follow us on Spotify. We're really, really close to having ads put on our Spotify podcasts. So we go through the Anchor app. So really close to Anchor putting ads on our podcast through Anchor. So be sure to go listen, go like and subscribe. If you're doing chores around the house or your apartment, put it on. Going for a run, put it on. Got a long commute like I do every day, put it on.
Share it with your friends.
Yes, please share it with your friends if you like the video.
And
share it with your friends.
The other thing that I just want to mention real quick before I dip off is with preseason testing officially getting underway for Formula One starting on Thursday. It will be televised and it will be broadcasted and everything. I will be doing each day. I will be doing a testing report, and that will be exclusively on Spotify. So we'll be doing just a quick 20 to 30 minutes testing report, updating you on everything that you need to know from testing. And then we will be back on Sunday, a week from today, as we are recording this. I don't know when you're listening to it, but we're recording today on Sunday. A week from today, we will be doing our official preseason predictions episode ahead, 1 week out from the Bahrain Grand Prix. So be sure to this upcoming week with testing, we're going to be putting out a lot of content. So be sure to check it out, share it with your friends, give us a follow. Yeah.
And this upcoming week for preseason testing, Chris will be doing it because my day job will prohibit me from watching any testing. I'm a teacher, so I'll be teaching during the day. So be sure to tune in. Chris is really good with all the preseason testing and tech talk and all that stuff. So be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment on the video, follow us on all socials, Snapchat, or not Snapchat, that's a lie. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok.
Especially TikTok, because we're really close to being able to go live on TikTok. So give us a follow on TikTok.
Yes, follow us on TikTok. Once we hit 1,000 followers on TikTok, we can go live and we'll be able to do live stuff on TikTok. So be sure to follow us, like, subscribe, leave comments, share with your friends. And with that being said, we're going to peace out. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Like and subscribe. Bye, everyone.